Welcome everyone to Office Hours. I'm Stuart Newsom, and today's session is titled How Radiology Teams Modernize Intake Without Disrupting Epic Workflows. So I'm joined today by Neelam Yadav, who's the Associate Product Manager at Infinix, who works closely with healthcare organizations to implement AI-powered document capture and streamline intake workflows, particularly on the automation team. Neelam, just how you doing today? And also, if you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do here at Infinix.
Hi, yeah, I'm doing good. I work as an associate product manager here. I've been part of Infinix since 1.5 years, and I've seen a lot of US healthcare workflows, use cases, and I work with automation team to sort of automate those workflows. Primarily, now working on the document capture AI to bring in automation in the referral management workflow. Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you've done an excellent job, and you've been very busy. Because we've had a lot of situations and where we've needed this technology. We've been speaking to a lot of clients, a lot of prospects, and we've kept you very, very busy. So to kind of segue over that, for today's topic, we are taking a technical look, so to speak, at modernizing radiology, specifically intake, but it can apply to any specialty, and covering integration. And we're going to discuss specifically Epic today, but it could apply to other EHRs as well. Things like field mapping, document quality issues, preventing duplicate records. That's just a few of those problems. It's not exhaustive. There's many obstacles and potholes you could step in if you don't do this right. And it's all while keeping operations running very smoothly. So how do you do that balance? Where is that balance in that? So very interesting call today. Could be technically oriented, but Neelam's going to do a good job to make sure it's clear, understandable, and crisp. So as always, we have time for audience Q&A if we have time, which we will make time actually for Q&A at the end. So feel free to submit your questions in the chat or the Q&A below. And also, as always, I also welcome comments. If you have any insights you want to share, feel free to share those in the Q&A below. So Neelam, you ready?
Yeah, all set.
All right, awesome. So first question I have for you is, and you've been on several calls with me and some of our reps as well when we're talking to clients and prospects. In those calls, we've heard from radiology teams that even high-tech organizations still get buried under messy multi-patient faxes, handwritten orders, scattered intake workflows. From your perspective, why do these issues persist, and where do you see automation making the biggest dent?
So the time that I've spent in analyzing these sort of referral management flows, right, what I've observed that there's a high dependency on referring physicians who use faxes, and then there's paperwork. It comes from varied EMR systems. So there's no lot of control on the input quality or format. And then multi-patient faxes also come in where the clinics tries to sort of batch send the documents, and then you get those documents with multiple patients. And handwritten is also there in a lot of referring physician clinics because they have that lack of infrastructure for electronic order records or things like that. But until very recently, like automating through OCR was a technology which was being used for, but there all of us know that there was a challenge with how the data is structured and where it is present, that you have to have standard formats, only then it will work. With document capture AI, what we are able to do is address these concerns as we are able to give context to the AI agent, right? It is able to comprehend the document as a whole and not just a specific field or a specific area of the document. So that allows us to cater to variable layouts and random formats. Like I can have a referral in any other format, and our system would be able to cater to and handle it, and extract information accurately accurately out of it. So with automation, we are able to centralize all of these faxes and still like have pipelines where we are able to identify multi-patient, split it, handle handwritten documents, and still you're able to update it into the EMR system with accuracy and freeing up the staffing that we have right now. So this allows us to, and our system is built in a way that we are able to cater to these different scenarios that you spoke about, right? Whether it is a messy document or it is a multi-patient handwritten orders, how do you automate those? So we have catered to in solving for those with document capture AI.
Yeah, excellent point. And specifically the handwritten orders, we'll cover some of these other messy issues as we go through here. But um, we've heard a lot of frustration about poor quality handwritten orders, and I'm always amazed at how the agents that you were speaking of are able to just capture that information well above what traditional OCR or even natural language processing has done. So even one leader that we spoke to even said, some of our handwritten orders are just bad. I mean, and that's kind of like an overstatement and an understatement, right? So how can AI recognize its limits in those cases and make sure nothing critical slips through?
Right. So even for like I have personally seen a lot of poor quality and bad quality handwritten documents, right? Like even as a human, you are not able to comprehend what's there in the document. So that becomes a challenge. But one of the strengths with document capture AI is its ability to work with such challenging handwritten documents, right? We have technology which enhances the image quality, even if it is a bad quality or handwritten one, and then find the patterns to comprehend that data and extract and give it out that information. And it does a pretty good job. Like we've seen it that many a times it happens that as a human we are not able to understand it, but when we zoom in a very like zoom in into it and we see what has extracted is actually the correct value. But even with that capability, we recognize that these are the cases where AI alone shouldn't be making the call. And our system is designed in a way that we have confidence model to score each of the extracted value. And if it is below certain threshold, we are able to identify that if it is a low confidence document or if it is a bad quality or a handwritten document and automatically flag that. With that flagging, we can have it move to a certain queue where a human agent or a human person can review it, right? And correct it or confirm whatever the bot has extracted. If it is correct, well and good, you move it ahead and it gets updated into the customer system. What this helps us with is that the majority of your document still flows through the automation where there is no human intervention needed. The right cases get the human attention, right? Ensuring like nothing, no critical data gets slipped through and we still maintain the quality. This also sort of helps us to have a review on the resources, like you're not wasting your resources on a clean data, but wherever you need, our confidence model is allowing you to bifurcate that and work on it and move your documents ahead. So that way the quality is maintained and yes, yet your resources are still within the limit, which is a good human in the loop sort of concept, right? Where the AI agent works on it along with human agent, you have an efficient and a faster system.
Right, exactly. And I'm just amazed at, because we all know physicians in particular, handwriting that is not the best. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, dealing with doctors, looking at their documentation, and it's just horrible. But yet I'm amazed at how this technology can pick up on that, particularly the ages, not just OCR, but I'm also amazed at just some of the simple things, like you take date, for instance. I've yet to see a situation where it failed to recognize this, but you have the forward slash in the date dividers, and you have like a number one in the actual date itself, and it's able to distinguish between the forward slash and the one. And I'm always amazed at that, at how the technology was not only able to recognize it as a date, so it knew where to put that information. It was able to extract it successfully. Uh, just absolutely astonishing to me. So in another recent conversation that we had with a radiology leader, they were worried about referral numbers. Basically, if a referral number landed in the authorization field in Epic specifically, again, we're talking about Epic, so the case would automatically drop off their work list if that happened. So how common are risks like that in document workflows, and how do you design technology to prevent those from happening?
Yeah, so this is a concern that we keep hearing about. Like, what if, AI extracts something wrong, some number randomly from the page and considers that as a referral number or authorization number, which is fair. But that's where document capture AI comes in, right? Like, our AI agents are not just looking for generic keywords or um, without any context. Here, we have specifically trained it for referral context. So they understand the difference between a referral number and an authorization number for what the entire document as a whole is trying to do in the entire healthcare process. Like, how would you explain it to a human? Similarly, we have explained it to the AI agent, right? That it is a context-driven approach, which greatly reduces these sort of misclassification, is what I would say. And on top of that, we also have safeguards in place, right? As I just spoke about, the confidence model, which allows us to sort of identify if this, 100 times this comes in as like this, but this one feel that it is slightly different what I have seen before. So in that scenario, it highlights and we get that confirmation. Also, with when we do any integration, we have that safeguard in place where we do a field level check, pattern matching, validation of whether it's the exact field which we should get updated into the customer system. So even if by mistake somewhere it gets slipped, we have those catches where we catch it and then move it to a manual review and somebody takes care of it, corrects the information and move it. So that way the AI also extracts it correctly, and the mapping is also bulletproof, which is sort of our second layer of protection.
Awesome. So it's really more about workflows as well. I mean, yes, we want to read the data, extract that data, but then it's also, okay, what happens, if the data needs someone to check it. It's like an orchestration, if you will, with, human specialist to oversee that. So it's really more workflow management in essence to make sure it's going to be entered correctly where it needs to be entered correctly without mistakes and without having to go back and make sure to correct those mistakes later. It's better to handle it up front. So very insightful there. Um, so again, talking about some Epic integration, it comes up a lot in discussions. Just about every demo, every time we talk to a client or a prospect, they're an Epic user. So their discussions really evolve around things like HL7 ORM messages, uploading documents in base 64 format. I know I'm getting very technical here, but from a product perspective, what are the key steps to making sure integration is smooth and meets each organization's workflow requirements?
Yeah, so I agree. Epic comes in a lot, like in a lot of conversation, because it is one of the widely used EMRs which are there in place, right? And we have worked with Epic as an organization for years across our different products, right? Like right now we have Infinix Prior Authorization Platform, which also integrates with Epic. So with Doc Capture AI, we are building on top of that, like um, and have used that expertise that we have. So how it usually works is that we understand the client's relationship with Epic, like how do they integrate, how do they update the information there right now, what's the current flow, accordingly recommend what are the subscriptions or settings that they would have to do in Epic, and around that we sort of do our mapping and get the integration in place. So it depends on what's the need and understanding the users or customers expectation, and accordingly doing the mapping and updating into the Epic system. One question which you also spoke about, right? Like how do you upload documents in Epic? So right now we've just validated with Epic that it allows us to upload documents, as you said, like we send them in base 64 format using the HL7 encoding segments, and we update it there. So this is something that is possible, and the only key is to mapping the details to the right format in which Epic accepts it, and you should be good to go. So here, like just to answer your question, it would be a staggered process where we understand the flow, we recommend what's needed, and then based on the customer's expectation and in current integration, we update it into the Epic. The other piece which I would like to highlight here is that it doesn't end at Epic, right? Like at Epic, we update the information. What we have built with Doc Capture AI is that you would get those acknowledgement numbers, and once the update has happened, what against which patient ID does we have updated this document against which order ID it was updated. So we have built Doc AI with that traceability, that once a document comes in, it flows through the entire life cycle, and then it gets updated, completes its life cycle, and you have the entire traceability on Doc AI. So if somebody is doing audit or somebody wants to look at it, or for a specific document, say you want to trace it, you will have those visibility on our platform.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, that's very important as far as that functionality because it all begins there, in my opinion. It's how is information getting in there, particularly documents, because we've had that come up a lot of times where they want to attach the document, and how that's done within those traditional interfaces that are exposed to us in HL7. And really sounds like we're leveraging all we can out of that, and then some. Um, and then now when we're talking about onboarding, we're talking about ramping up. Typically, we'll have a discovery call, we'll have a meeting of the minds where we get everyone in the same room and we're meeting about, hey, how are we going to accomplish this? How are we going to tackle this, and ramp this up? And some radiology groups tell us they don't want staff sitting in meetings that don't apply to their role. So it's very role specific. So one leader even suggested to us that starting with order intake, then expanding to other workflows, would be a great approach, and not necessarily have everyone that's involved, but it is important to get those personnel involved as you touch on those different segments of that workflow. So how do you recommend structuring a phased rollout to keep it both efficient and high impact?
So with this, I agree to what you said. The best strategy is to identify the workflow where it is high volume and high pain point. Order intake is usually the perfect because it's the choking point for a lot of downstream systems. And within that as well, I recommend starting with certain percentage of a volume as a pilot, observing that and seeing the entire workflow with a limited team, so that you are training certain people and getting that flow in place, and also testing it out with your system, right? Like how it is updating, if everything is correct, and are your team getting comfortable, and slowly increase the load as you get certain and as the users are getting comfortable. Once it is stabilized, then you expand it to the other workflows, and a phased out rollout sort of helps in keeping the stakeholders targeted, and change management is also light, right? Usually with such processes, it becomes a heavy task for the entire team to go um, together at once with a completely new system, which just sets you up for failure. With the staggered phased out rollout, you're set for early successes, right? Like you have
Mhm.
started with a smaller group, you have seen it, and you see the success first, and then you scale it up to the next groups. And it also allows like your staff not to get overwhelmed. And that's what we have done with one of our biggest customer. Like we did a staggered stepwise automation. They had a lot of regions, so we did it for specific document type and then specific region, and then staggered rolled it out for each region within a month. And it was a frictionless journey because we had planned it accordingly, that less number of people start, you train, and then you find the patterns, right? Like what is the most efficient way to do the change management, and then just replicate that, and you're set for success.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan because I know from experience people don't like change. They're used to their routines. And sometimes, they hear, oh, ramp up or integration. They think, oh, wow, this is overwhelming for us. But the way you've kind of broken it down kind of makes it simple. And it also eases their mind that, hey, we're not here to necessarily change your workflows. We want to come alongside your workflows, and adopt, how can we adapt together to make sure this is all going to work with the focus and mission to improve that intake process or whatever that integration is supposed to help. It's all about improvement, and making sure that, it's an easy lift for them. Make it easy for them to understand, how this is going to affect their role, their job specifically, because they don't want to feel threatened by it. They want to embrace when you present to make them embrace it, so to speak. Um,
Correct.
so one once automation is in place, all right, and review processes can look very different. Uh, some teams review every document at first, then loosen controls over time. So, what's your advice on balancing speed and accuracy during those first months after go live?
So I usually recommend my customers to treat Doc AI as a new team member. Like once you have done the setup and you have everything in place, like you would treat a new human member coming to your team, right? You would initially review 100% of their work, whatever they are doing, and make sure that they are correctly updating everything and not making mistakes and getting the feedback that's needed. I would essentially treat Doc AI like that. Like you do your 100% reviews at first, you identify if there are any edge cases that are missing, we update any extraction rules or mappings which are missing. And once they have shown or proven themselves, you ease off, right? So similarly, you would do for Doc AI. Like once you see that it has perfected, you're seeing like good updates that are happening, then you sort of limit or reduce your audit sampling that you do. Then you sample your documents and do the testing at a weekly or a monthly audit, whatever works for you. I've seen some organizations who audit their users every day, certain percentage of it. That workflow also works. So document capture AI, we have built it in a way that we can cater to these auditing needs, right? Like if you want to do at a weekly cadence or a monthly cadence, you want to do at different stages in Doc AI, like if you want to do just after the data is extracted, or if you want to audit the overall flow. So we are set up and our workflow works like that, that you can configure as per your need and do the sampling. But this is our recommended approach, that you do 100% and then you slowly reduce your sampling as and when the confidence still keeps gaining, but the models still keeps updating, right? So monthly audits or a weekly audits is recommended.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, kind of you have to treat it like another employee. And when you're onboarding an employee, I think that's an excellent point you made. Because many people think, oh, it's software, it's tech, let's turn it on and train our people to use it. But in this instance, this really is like a digital coworker. It is someone, and just like you would, measure with certain KPIs, performance metrics, and making sure that things are getting done timely. You have to do the same thing for, any agents that you deploy, which, I've always been an advocate of that. Make sure you're monitoring your tech just as much as you're monitoring your personnel, because they are working in tandem. You got to make sure it's all running smoothly and appropriately. So,
Right.
yeah, so Neelam, that's all the questions I have for you right now. So we're going to turn it over to the Q&A section and make sure I'm going to check our inbox here. There is a question that I see that has to do with duplicate orders. So I'll just read it for you and you can respond as you see fit. So duplicate order or patient creation can create real headaches for both scheduling and revenue cycle teams. From your perspective, what are the most common causes of duplication in radiology intake workflows, and how can automation help prevent it?
Right. Yeah. So there are two parts to it, right? Like one is what are the causes that we've seen? Some of the causes are that referring team sends it again, thinking that this order is not being sent, and the same order gets updated multiple times. Or it can also happen that intake staff, while keying it, they update a new patient instead of realizing that there's a patient that already exists. Or it could also happen that the patient demographic didn't match. So while updating, um, it created a duplicate or something. That can also happen in case of such automation. And it happens in the real life when manual agents work on it as well, right? So to address this, what we are doing at Document Capture AI is been building a layer to check for duplicate orders. Like we scan through last n number of days. That n is configurable depending on our customer, how frequently, based on studying their workflows, we would identify that. And based on those and number of days, we scan if the document already exists and flag those. So once we are flagging those and moving those documents to a separate queue, it gets the attention that is needed. Even if it is in automation, based on the configuration, what we can do is highlight it that it doesn't update into the EMR system because we think this is duplicate. So based on that, we can either have a human review it or just to discard those documents. So that depends on the workflow that is needed. But what we do is, like, when we are flagging it for human review, they also know that this is a duplicate document. So then they take care of it accordingly, right? Because we have already flagged for it. So that's sort of helps us build that efficacy and reduce that duplicate effort that happens with the duplicate orders, right? And in a lot of HL7 and these sort of integrations, you usually don't get the confirmation whether the patient already existed or whether it was updated against the order, a new order or an old order. So it becomes very critical while automating to identify this in the initial stage of the workflow. So that really helps. And with that intent itself, we have sort of brought that in for document capture AI as well.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. That's so critical because already, if someone's following the manual processes that we started off the call with this intake, especially with faxes, someone has to touch that document. Someone has to read it. And even if it's for a split second and they can recognize, oh, I've seen this before, it's a duplicate and has to delete it, it's still time they're taking and that's being eliminated through this technology, through this agent. So that in itself is a time saver, but everything else you just said is also just going to make sure it's not duplicated also within the Epic system, as well. So awesome. Well, Neelam, you did great. This was an awesome session. I want to thank you so much for joining us. This was an amazing time that we had. I hope everyone out there got some insights out of this. And if you did, be sure to join us next week for another episode of Office Hours. It's going to be insightful as well. You can also catch this on our podcast, Revenue Cycle Optimized. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to Revenue Cycle Optimized. We do have a lot of great episodes and content out there for you to consume. So with that, thank you for joining us, everyone. And Neelam, again, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
All right. See everyone next time.